All right, so I just want to kind of go over a little bit about the function or the purpose of like machines for training and different types of equipment. What happened was back in the 80s and 90s, and when gyms first started to come around, the commercial gym, it's basically what they do is they just rent. They're renting like use of machines and equipment to you. So the things that they filled the gym with were things that were easy to use, and just, usually they weren't very functional, as they say. So you weren't up on your feet typically. You're just kind of sitting down doing things, and that's kind of how gyms like developed over the course of years. So bodybuilding was really big. So just they were purely around for the aesthetics part of fitness. So they weren't that functional in terms of what we would consider functional in terms of improving sports performance or trying to improve a certain aspect of your fitness. So like a chest fly machine was just to improve your pecs and your chest. So, and that's how gyms were set up for years and years. Sorry about that. Now, what happened was maybe early 2000s, mid 2000s, they started to come out with more functional based training. So they wanted people to be, a lot of places opened up and they totally got rid of machines, a lot of CrossFit places, things like that. No machines, just barbells, body weight stuff, things like that. Now, what happens is, and that stuff is good, that's better than just sitting on a machine all day and working on some type of machine. For so many reasons, but what happens is in fitness, typically things swing, they're here and then they swing completely opposite way. And usually where you want to be is somewhere in between in the sweet spot. So, they took a commercial gym full of machines and totally unfunctional, and basically just made for bodybuilding purposes, and it completely swung the other way to where all they had was a warehouse with barbells in it. And now there's an inherent problem with just having a warehouse full of barbells too, especially if you're training athletes. Because what happens is, what I try to explain to people, training is kind of like climbing a ladder. You push yourself to failure basically, you find weaknesses and you try to build those weaknesses, and it's just a constant stair stepper. So you might have a glaring weakness, which is your abdominals and your lower back, and you work really hard over the course of a couple months to bring those up, but now you brought those up, so now those are going to be stronger than your quads. Now you need to work for a few months just building up your quads, and now you go to here, and then to here, and then to here, and it's a constant stair step on the way up. Now what happens is, if all you're using is functional stuff, and you're only using barbells, it's very difficult to bring up weak points. So if all you're doing is squatting or deadlift or power cleans or bench press or push press, those are all pretty functional movements in terms of developing strength. Yes, it's great for developing maximal strength, and it's good to test them and to find weaknesses, but a lot of times you can't bring up your weakness. Let's say you have a weakness in your calves. It's going to be very difficult to train calves with just a barbell. You're gonna have to put the barbell on your back and do some calf raises. It's hard to do single leg calf raises with that. You can't do seated where you're getting more of your Achilles and your knees are bent. So it's just, you would need like a calf machine for that, or a slant board. You would need to add some equipment for that. Same thing with back. Like, it'd be very difficult. Yes, you could strengthen your upper back doing some barbell bent over rows, but then that's the end of it. If you had a landmine, you could do a little more with the barbell. Now, if you get a seated row machine, you could do even more. If you get a cable machine to do face pulls, you could do even more. A T-bar, chest supported rows, you could do even more, changing your grip. So like, if you add some pieces of equipment, you could bring up those weaknesses. And that's why the truth is gonna lie somewhere in between a gym full of machines, like a Workout World or a Bally's or whatever, I don't know what kind of gyms they have around now, and a CrossFit gym, or like some type of very basic gym where all they have is barbells. You need to have all that in there, because especially when you're training athletes, they're going to have weaknesses that need to be brought up, and brought up quickly, and just doing more squats if you have a hamstring weakness isn't going to help. So yes, there is a lot you can do with a barbell, but it's very difficult to get directed single joint work to really blow up a lagging muscle group and bring it up so that it becomes a strength. And that's why you need to add some different pieces of equipment and some types of maybe even old school machines to the mix. And that's why this part of our gym over here, we have all sorts of machines. And to be honest, if I wanted to expand my gym, I would get more room so we could add some more pieces of equipment that were like machine-based equipment, so we could do targeted work for specific muscles. Not necessarily more room, yeah, maybe another rack or so, but not more room for barbells, or even more turf space for sprinting. That's not necessarily what, you know, after training all these athletes, that's not really what I found that they need. So the other day we came out, I went up north, I bought a, like I was talking about before, I don't know if you could see, there you go, seated calf machine. Next to that is a squat machine. Here is a T-bar row machine. Okay, we have a cable machine. We have the lower back extension machine. Now, this is a great piece of equipment, but it'd be very difficult for a beginner to develop their lower back. And I did a whole video about lower back on the 45-degree back. But it'd be very difficult for a beginner to develop their back with a barbell. They need to start somewhere, and this is better. And this gives, we could do tons and tons of volume of direct lower back work with a machine like this. And a machine like this glute ham machine, you can do back extensions and glute ham raises, and this reverse hyper, which is going to be, you know, thousands of reps of back work over the course of a year, leg raises, seated rows, and then the belt squat machine is for targeting the glutes. And you can do a lot of different things with this, but you know, you get the point. The landmine. So we're really giving ourselves a lot more ways to bring up weak spots. So what happens is every time I find we're struggling with something, and I think that a lot of our athletes could benefit from it, and there's not really too many options available, I go out and get a piece of equipment that we could just hammer that spot with. Okay, so you know, this last weekend I went and got the seated calf machine because I think a lot of guys could use that seated machine to stretch their Achilles more, to get more dorsiflexion, and also to strengthen that area where a lot of them are weak. But even like a lat pull down machine, okay? You wouldn't see a functional gym, a lot of them wouldn't have a lat pull down machine, but some people are very weak, they have very weak underactive lats, and they need to work their lats. It's an important muscle group. It ties basically your upper and your lower, it ties your upper body to your hips, and it needs to be worked. And let's say you can't do pull-ups, you can only do so many pull-ups before, and a lot of people can't even do pull-ups. So you know, you need to train it some other way. And so this always gives people options, and it gives us a way to really get, what it really comes down to is we can get progress a lot faster by bringing up lagging muscles and lagging joints with machines than we can with a barbell. Don't get me wrong, the meat of our training is with a barbell. We're hitting heavy barbell lifts at the beginning of every session, but we finish the sessions with all supplemental work, which is typically either going to be sleds, machines, things like that to bring up lagging muscle groups.